Hey guys, Dr. Shook here. Hope you're doing well today. I told you yesterday I was going to share some new information with you guys, some new research with you guys on that I've come across recently that I think is really important for you to understand to protect your thyroid. And also, if you're already dealing with problems with your thyroid, like Hashimoto's or any autoimmune problem, this could be really important for you to understand, especially if you're getting those injections in your face, that, you know, the ones that paralyze the muscles so you don't show the wrinkles. This could be really important for you. I know that my wife, there's many times that she would love for me to get those injections because I have this tendency to furrow my brow. See all these wrinkles and this. So anyway, but let's talk about this because this is really serious. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys, and I'm gonna show you some amazing research. Okay, there's a lot of stuff that I want to share with you guys, but I'm trying to break this into little pieces so that you can use it and so that we don't go for 30 minutes. So let's go ahead and take a look at this new research that just came out, or that came out rather recently. I think it was last year in this might be 2011, but there was some that came out in 2016 that I'll share tomorrow that's also relevant. Okay, so let me see if I can find the exact. Here we go. Let's take a look. All right, guys. So I'm going to share my screen. That should have you guys, you should be sharing my screen now. If you guys have any questions, you can let me know. I can't see your comments yet, but as soon as I finish talking about this, I'll go back to the screen where I can see your comments. So let's zoom in just a little bit. So this is really, really, really important, guys. This was actually published in 2011, but I bet you that almost none of you know about this unless you've heard about me talk about it in the past. And I'm almost certain that if you're getting these injections in your face, I'm not going to call them by their brand name, but they're Clostridium botulinum toxin, okay? And they have a name, they have brand names, but it's this Clostridium botulinum toxin that's injected into the face. It paralyzes the nerve, or it actually damages the nerve, but it will come back eventually, and it paralyzes the muscle so that you don't have the wrinkles, the forehead, the furrowing the brow, the eyes here. There's so many things I could talk to you guys about this, but the main thing that I want to talk to you about is this research that showed that these injections, right, which we're all familiar with them, a lot of people get them done, may cause thyroid complications in predisposed persons based on molecular mimicry with the thyroid. Okay, what molecular mimicry means is that the way that these injections work, that they paralyze these muscles of the face, is that they use a neurotoxin. Okay, Clostridium botulinum neurotoxin A. They inject it, and it damages basically the nerve so that the nerve cannot fire the muscle, so the muscles are paralyzed. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. So what they found, though, is that this botulinum neurotoxin, this Clostridium botulinum neurotoxin, has very similar, if you look at it on a molecular level, very similar molecular structure, let's call it the structure, as some of the tissues of the thyroid. Now, see, that's not good, because when you inject something like that foreign into the body, you're going to have an immune response to it. The immune system is going to say, hey, what is this? And if it launches an attack against that botulinum neurotoxin, then the antibodies that are produced, which, remember, antibodies float through the bloodstream, they don't do damage themselves. But antibodies that the immune system makes, they're kind of like Post-it notes, right? So they float through the bloodstream and they stick to the things that they're designed to stick to based on their molecular structure, and they mark it for destruction by other immune cells. But if you're injecting something like Clostridium botulinum neurotoxin, I'm not going to call the injections that paralyze the face by their brand name, but if they did that and your immune system reacts to it and you produce antibodies against this neurotoxin, and if it looks very similar to your thyroid tissue, this is a concept called molecular mimicry. They mimic one another. They look similar enough. You may have attachment of the antibodies that are being produced against this toxin that they're actually injecting in your face for cosmetic reasons. It may actually cause cross-reactivity and destruction of the thyroid itself. So listen to what they say in this paper. They say, considering the wide and increasing medical and dermo-cosmetic use of BTX, and the frequently subclinical course of autoimmune thyroid disease, meaning it's not, a lot of people have, listen guys, a lot of people have Hashimoto's and autoimmune thyroid conditions and don't even know it. Okay, like I've told you before, it's estimated 90% of people with hypothyroidism, low thyroid function, actually have that's being caused by Hashimoto's and an autoimmune thyroid problem. Those are millions and millions of people. Okay, if it's 90%, that's 9 out of every 10 people. And believe me, a lot of people have no idea what's going on because no one's checking for it. Okay, now with the subclinical course of autoimmune thyroid diseases, we think that thyroid complications, in quotes, may pass frequently undetected in BTX treated persons. So there are a lot of people that are doing these BTX or these Clostridium botulinum neurotoxin injections to paralyze the muscles of the face so that you don't have the wrinkles when you're smiling and doing other things. When you have your facial expressions, it's paralyzed, so you don't have the wrinkles, but it could create some really serious potential problems. Now, not to mention, so we're talking like this could flare up the thyroid, guys. This could trigger autoimmunity. It's a very legit thing that they're finding here. Now, there's some other research that came out in 2016 that we could talk about. If I have it pulled up, we'll look at it too. I do. Here it is. Molecular mimicry and autoimmune thyroid disease. Okay, so you're not going to hear this anywhere, guys, because you're just not going to hear this anywhere. I mean, it's very rare that you're going to hear anyone talking about this stuff, especially people that are giving these injections, like I just mentioned, the BTX or the Clostridium botulinum injections. They really don't know about these side effects. So there's a ton of side effects. Before I kind of get into this, let me stay on this. There are a ton of potential side effects. These injections of this Clostridium neurotoxin A into the face to paralyze the muscles. In mice, they're finding that it actually, when they inject it near their whiskers, that it migrates. They're finding it in the brain. Okay, so a neurotoxin that paralyzes nerve cells in the brain. Now, this is again a mouse model, because we can't study the brains of people with this. You can't go poking around in there, right? So they're finding that in mice. They're finding there's a lot of unreported potential side effects to these injections. And so some people are like, well, okay, I'm not going to get the paralyzing injections that take out the wrinkles on my face, but what I am going to do is get the fillers, right? The fillers. Well, the fillers are really no better. The fillers can actually, there have been reported cases of people getting the fillers, and it actually blocks vessels to the eye, and they go blind in an eye, or it gets into the bloodstream and it causes a stroke. These are serious potential complications, and there are a lot of people that report with the Clostridium botulinum neurotoxin injections that paralyze the muscle that they've had much more serious complications, and you can look all that stuff up. But I wanted to talk about this because this is really important, because they're showing here in the literature that it mimics thyroid tissue. So if you have an immune response against this neurotoxin that's being injected into your face that everyone thinks is just like there's nothing to it, there's no consequences, you might be mistaken. And a lot of people administering these treatments have no idea of the potential complications, and they don't know, because it's something that's not recognized. If someone has a stroke a day or two or whatever after having a filler put in, for example, they might not associate that. If there's an autoimmune thyroid condition that flares or that becomes significantly or that's triggered after some of these injections that paralyze the muscles, it's not something that people associate. But the research is showing that there's definitely some strong connections. So in 2016, there's another study done, which this was just last year, December 17th of 2016. No one's talking about this. Like I told you guys yesterday, if you went through the other tour of some research with me about the food reactivity in the thyroid, no one's talking about this stuff. It's because I'm always looking for how can I get better outcomes with people? How can I help people to improve their health? So they actually, what they did was they looked at different types of infections that might trigger an autoimmune thyroid. So how many of you have talked about, like, you've heard about different types of infections, but check out what they said here. They said in this paper, so they're looking at different types of infections that might trigger autoimmune thyroid disease. Okay, they said, without it being too technical here, there's similarities in molecular structure, and the HLA genes. Okay, that's about as deep as we're going to go. They support and explain the triggering role of Borrelia, which we're talking about, like Lyme and Lyme co-infections, Yersinia, Clostridium botulinum, which is what we just talked about. That's what's in those injections that paralyze the face. Rickettsia, H. pylori, and H. pylori. And then also pathogenic importance of Toxoplasma gondii, bifidobacteria, lactobacilli, Candida albicans. I mean, how many people have like Candida infections? Hepatitis C viruses, in autoimmune disease. So all these things, they're showing, like, so we know, that's why, listen, that's why when we work with people to try to figure out what's driving their problem, you've got to look at possible infectious drivers and triggers. Because see, guys, a lot of people develop thyroid autoimmunity or an autoimmune problem, and they'll read something and they'll be like, you know, Epstein-Barr calls it. I know it. I've got Epstein-Barr. And the problem is that it may have been a trigger, but it doesn't mean that it's currently driving the process, because you can have something that triggers the immune response, but that does not mean it's the thing that's perpetuating and driving it. So that's why when we're looking at what's driving the autoimmune process, we look at foods that can drive it. If you didn't watch the video that I went through and I shared research with you guys, especially on Hashimoto's and food reactivity to different parts of the thyroid hormone physiology, then you've got to go back to yesterday's live stream, watch it. It's worth watching. We look at foods. We measure immune responses to foods. We measure immune responses to pathogens, bacteria, viral, fungal, parasitic. Okay, we look at like these different pathogens, because this is showing you here molecular mimicry. The pathogens have similar molecular similarities to thyroid tissue. And if your immune system's reacting to the pathogen, it may react to your thyroid and trigger an immune response. Guys, this is not just with, it's really important that you look at pathogens when you're looking at autoimmunity, because if it's present in the body and you can get rid of it, then great. If it's past exposure, then that's fine. You know that it may have been a trigger, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the thing driving it. That's why you've got to look at foods, pathogens, environmental chemical reactivity, which is probably something I'll do a live stream on, maybe not tomorrow, but sometime soon. We'll talk a little bit about the environmental chemical reactivity. I've done a lot of videos on that, whiteboard videos. But I had to share this with you guys. It's super important because I know a lot of people, ladies do it, I believe, more than men. I could be wrong there. So, but these injections, you know, so they smooth the skin, right, by paralyzing the muscles. Listen, there's a lot of problems. Let me just say this, you know, not to mention all these problems we see, these potential problems with these botulinum neurotoxin, Clostridium botulinum neurotoxin injections to paralyze the muscles of the face so the skin's smooth. Not to mention that there's an immune-based problem that could trigger a thyroid issue or flare in thyroid problem. But there's also this issue that when you paralyze muscles in your face, guys, guess what? You have all kinds of nerves in your face. These are sensory nerves. They sense, like when I wrinkle my forehead, my skin as it's distorted or it's manipulated by the muscles, it moves, it's deformed by the muscles. I have nerve endings that are sensing that change in pressure, that are firing to my brain and lighting up the areas of my brain like a light bulb with electrical activity. And then that's signaling neurons around those nerves that are firing in, and there's this integrative process. This all means something to our brain. It's not just one thing. Like even when you're experiencing emotions, if your facial expressions and everything that's coming in, all the sensory information is integrated. Your brain interprets all these things. And when you paralyze these muscles of your face, there's research that's showing that you may not be able to read other people's emotions as well. You may not have empathy, the same kind of empathy, because you don't feel the emotion if you can't move like your forehead. You know, if the forehead's paralyzed and you can't wrinkle it or move it, then you can't have the expressions, and there's a different interpretation by the brain. It's really interesting. There's also some research that showed that whenever there was whenever the muscles of the face were, like different muscles of the face were paralyzed. So you wouldn't be firing those sensory nerves. It wouldn't be lighting up the brain with activity. And then there was actually an indication that you might lose sensory function in other parts of the body that are like near that area of the brain. Okay, so let's say that the nerves from the face fire into a part of the brain where they're integrated that's near, like the sensation in this part of your hand, let's say. Okay, if those aren't lit up, those neurons aren't lit up, it may cause problems with like loss of sensation, where you might not have normal sensation in the hand. It's really interesting. You're changing your neurology when you paralyze your face with a neurotoxin. You put your immune system on alert, and you could have problems. Okay, you can have some real problems, especially if you have a thyroid issue. So these are all the things that we have to take into consideration, guys. We got to do it. We have to take these into consideration. I'm going to switch back really quickly. Hey, Joanne. Hi, Marie. I just want to share this with you guys, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop off here. I'm going to get home, and hopefully you guys will be able to use this information, and it will help you out. But there are risks associated with everything, and injecting a neurotoxin in your face for vanity, bunches of people do it. Lots of people do it, but you're putting your health at risk. And if you have a thyroid problem, something you got to consider, okay? You want to be careful. Okay, but I appreciate you guys. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful Thursday afternoon. And if you have any questions, comments, please post them here. I actually have a link in the description of this video so that you can actually go and look at the research I was just talking about. So anyway, guys, have a wonderful day. Talk to you again soon. And we'll cover another topic, okay?